here. Now all these cam followers are all around the same height, which is something we look for. The valves are around the same height, and that's okay as well. Now under here we have a look. This one's damp, but this one being damp was number 2, and if you remember, that's the one we put the oil down for the compression test. The valves seem to be sitting all at the same height, so that's good. And the cam followers, I'm not sure if I can get it to where you can see it, but the cam followers have marks on them. There's a mark through here. This one's good. That one's good. That one has a mark. This one has a mark. So we'll pop them out. You can regrind these, but as we own a tractor parts place, we can get everything at the right price. So we'll be replacing them. So to replace the cam followers, it's the same procedure as to set the tappets. I'll just grab a 9/16. And I might need a couple of 9/16ths. And all we do is loosen the lock nut. There we go. Whoop, wrong end, Lance. Bloody hell. Good help so hard to find, especially when you're helping yourself. So all these just unscrew. Then this is your tappet adjustment. Your rocker gear sits down here and runs across onto your valve. You can hear the shed creaking a little bit as the sun comes out and goes back down. The shed creaks. We don't have insulation here in Australia on our sheds. We just have tin sheds. We don't have snow or anything to insulate away from. And what I'm going to do now while we're here is this oil fitting for the rocker gear. I'm going to loosen that off and take it out. So later on when we're rolling the head around, or if we've got a surface ahead and we have all these studs out, we don't forget about that and wreck it. So now these cam followers, they'll just pull out. Now, can you see the line there? The line across it. That's no good. So what happens is the cam lobe actually comes along the side of the rocker normally. That looks pretty well centred, but on most engines the cam comes along just off centre. And as the cam lobe comes along, it just turns a little bit. The next time it turns a little bit more. Next time it turns a little bit more. That's so you don't get wear in one spot, but this one's just worn in the one spot. So we won't keep them in any particular order. No need, we're going to replace them. Now this this up here, if I get it back down to where you can see it. This is just a lifting bracket, which will be in the road for what we're doing. But like I said before, the one on the front left of the head is missing. This is the rear right. I might have a look and see if I can find one. If not, no big deal. Okay, we'll get the thermostat housing off, and there's a plate at the back here, so we'll undo them out of the way, and we'll get the head down to fairly bare. Right, I have the cylinder head on my bench. I've taken all the injector studs out, the manifold studs, the studs that were holding the rocker gear in, just so we can have a nice flat square block. Now I've made a special tool up front. As we pull the valves out, we're going to pop them in the hole, corresponding with the way we go. Now this is back to front, it really needs to go that way. The injector hole's here, so this is the front of the engine. So we're working backwards a little bit, but the valves are held in with a collet, so this gets pushed down. There's two collets, two tapered collets, one each side. Right, that sits in there like that. And then the spring tension holds them in place, and that's what stops your valve from, that's not sitting right in, out should do now, but that's your valve spring tension, and that stops your valve from dropping down into your bore. Now, being a dusted engine, we'll expect to find the inlet valves quite worn, so we'll have a look and yeah, we'll just see what we got. This is an inlet valve, and it's got quite a deep groove there. You can feel a lip over the edge here. I'm not sure if you can focus on that properly or not. Worse be an old fart, you can't see what you're doing. Right, so to my knowledge, the springs, the retainers and the collets are the same for each cylinder. I don't think they're any different. So we'll just get a pot and we'll put them in their own pot, and I'll just run through with the tool getting a valve out. So this is a clamp that I use. It's an old one. It's almost too big for this job, but this goes over the collet at this end, and this lever here, that just pushes in. Now give that a bump and that collapses the valve, and that gives us a chance to grab the collets. Once the collets are out, we can back that spring off again. And there we go. What I didn't mention before is that there's a little retainer under each spring, and that retainer, it just helps keep the spring central, so it's not trying to push sideways. And then once we've got the valve loose, you can notice it's a smaller valve. It's usually an exhaust valve that burns out. If there's going to be one burning out because of the exhaust gas racing around the corner. And if you have a look at that one there, see how it's all shiny here? Then it goes dark there. That was on its way to burning out. So that tells us that there's been exhaust through that under compression. So that goes in hole number 2. So I'll continue on, I'll strip all the valves out, and then we'll have a good look at the head. Now we've got all the valves out, we can see on the inlets there's quite a lip here where it sucked the rubbish in. The big ones are the inlets, and you notice the inlets have all got oil in them. So even though the air cleaner the air cleaner hose was damaged, it is possible that that manifold heater was dribbling a bit of fuel in, and that's what's making these fellas damp. But yeah, normally your inlet shouldn't be damp at all. It'll be dry. Well, it should be dry. But yeah, look, it's not looking too bad there. Bit of guide wear. What we look for here is around the fire ring on the head, that it was sealing all the way around, and it looks like it was. And on the valves, this is how they sit. So we have an inlet there that's quite worn, very sharp on the edge, and the inlet on number 2, look at that, look at the build-up of oil and rubbish around there. That was the one that was low on compression, so I'd imagine the dirt build-up, and the edge on this valve, the edge on this valve here is sharper than the others by a bit, so whoop, a funnel blew down. So what that tells us is the air coming in, this was probably the first place it went. This was the easiest road for the rubbish to get in. So there you go, that's stripping the head. Yeah, we'll give it a clean up later on sometime, and we'll check how true it is. We can't check how true it is with all this carbon and rubbish here now. I'll probably degrease it and then probably sandblast it, and then we'll work out our next step, whether we need to have it surfaced. But look, it does feel pretty good. I doubt that it needs surfacing, but anyway, we'll go from there. So that's the end of pulling the head off and inspecting it. Yeah, we'll move on to something else on the restoration.